Hello fellow brawlers, I'm Carlos Diamond. It's time to brawl. Today, we've got a very special video for you. That's right, Brawl Stars tier list for none other than Robo Rumble. Hope you enjoy. Okay guys, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now before we get started, it's important that you understand how this tier list is. First of all, we got 12 pros that jumped into a discussion, kind of figured out the best brawlers, discussed which ones are really the best for Robo Rumble, and then I spent 4 straight hours going every single brawler and playing them on Robo Rumble to make sure that this is the most accurate tier list available for you guys. One other quick thing guys, don't pay too much attention to the end times that I'm getting for these matches. You're going to find brawlers that are really good that got poor times, and you're going to find brawlers that are really bad that got great times, simply because I got 2 other teammates that are doing a really great job here. A lot of this also really depends on how many of those quick charging bots spawn and how quickly they spawn in early rounds. Different maps can influence things as well, and sometimes one player just accidentally dies and that throws the whole thing into chaos and you end up losing. Now what's really important, not the end times for these individual matches, but what really matters is the overall DPS for each brawler, as well as the survivability that they have for Robo Rumble, and that's what we're going to go ahead and jump into here. And guys, at the end of the video, I'm going to make sure and outline the best comp for Robo Rumble so you too can get as high a time as possible. We're going to get started off with the F tier brawlers. These are brawlers that just are not good for Robo Rumble, so please do not play them. Unless you're trying to get like a highest time for F tier brawlers Robo Rumble video. That could be fun. First off in the F tier, we have Nita. Nita, just not very good. She has really low damage per second. She's useless against the boss. One interesting thing is her bear can actually be used to mislead charging bots. But that's really kind of difficult to pull off consistently, and it's just not very great. Her bear just like dies in a matter of seconds. She can be useful if you line up bots and attack multiple at a time, but that's about it. It's just not consistent. Don't play Nita. Next we have Brock. Brock does an okay job at the early rounds, but later in the late game it's really difficult for him. He has such a slow reload speed that he just does not have the damage per second to really help out, and his super doesn't even cover a large enough area to really have a big impact on things. Next is Bo. He has very little damage per second for his shots. His super really isn't helpful consistently. Just not very good. If you do attack with Bo, one trick is that when you attack, if you want to make all of his shots land at the same point, you actually move to the left, and if you do that, all of his shots will land at the same point. If you want the opposite, you want a really big spread, you move to the right with Bo, and then it will spread out even further. So that's interesting if you really want to play Bo in Robo Rumble, but don't do it. Next we have Poco. Yeah, just don't. He's pretty good everywhere else, but I think you can put him on the shelf for this match. He sucks against mouse bots. He's not good against bull bots, and he's terrible against those sniper bots. And the boss is just forget about it. So I guess you can heal with him. Next we got Frank, who is not that great. You can use his super to kind of like stun the boss or prevent those rockets from jumping off, and that kind of works okay. You do have to get pretty close to enemy bosses to deal damage. His shot delay makes him really susceptible to getting shot at, and that means that you have to fall back and heal a lot. This is really particularly tricky against those sniper bots, and is one of the reasons why he's not very good. You can get a few lucky supers down to slow things down, but it's really hard to consistently do. Maybe fun to mess around with, but not really great for Robo Rumble. We also have Tara, who takes a really long time to build up her super and does very little damage from a distance, and you have to get really next to those bots, and she has a lower HP than a lot of other brawlers, and so that's not very good. And her super, even if you do get her super built up, it just does so little damage, it's not really worth it. Next we have Crow. He has really super low damage per second, especially from a distance. He's not very good. Tiny amount of HP, which means he gets taken out so quickly. One fun fact about Crow, and that is that you can actually deal more than 11,000 damage with a max Crow on a boss if you do it perfectly, okay? So what you have to do, you have to get right into the center of the boss, you have to jump up, and then you have to land perfectly onto the center of the boss. And if you do that right, all of the daggers will actually land on the boss and deal an insane amount of damage, coming up and coming down over 11,000, which is the second highest damage that any brawler is able to do against one single target, which is insane, but it is insanely difficult to pull off and is just impractical against the boss. Not worth it, guys. Next we have Piper. I cannot believe that I wasted a ticket on Piper, guys. It's not good. Please just don't play with Piper in Robo Rumble. I think it's obvious. I don't need to explain that. Then we have the worst brawler for Robo Rumble, and that is Mortis. Just don't. He has to get way too close to those brawlers to deal damage. He gets taken out super easily. He has to fall back to heal. The only reason why you should ever play Mortis in Robo Rumble is if you are going to do a hilarious Robo Rumble video for YouTube. And even then, it's probably still not even worth your time. I think I might write a letter to Supercell asking them if they can refund my ticket, because that was not a good use of time. Next, guys, we have the B tier brawlers. These are brawlers that you can play in Robo Rumble, particularly if you're just like screwing around, you want to have some fun, you're grinding Robo Rumble anyway, and you want to play some brawlers that are, switch things up a little bit here. But there are better options, particularly if you're wanting to get a max time. We're going to go ahead and start off with Shelly. Now, Shelly does not have a ton of HP, so getting close can be tricky. Having a Pam doesn't really help her very much like it does help with other brawlers, because her HP is a little bit lower. Her super can actually help reset the boss, and you can change her supers over and over again if there are enough bots on the field, but because her super does less damage from a distance than it does really close up, it doesn't deal enough damage consistently. This is particularly true because the bots rarely clump up into one specific spot where her super can deal max damage to all of them. If she could do that, that would be really awesome. There are just better options than Shelly. Next, we have Dynamike. Dynamike is a little bit trickier to use than Barley, but his shots do actually hit harder than Barley's. So really, unless you've practiced a ton with Dynamike and you can time his shots perfectly so that they are landing every single time, you're better off going with a Barley. If you are playing with a Dynamike, I recommend focusing on sniper bots if you can. His super doesn't melt through the boss like Barley's does, but he's still decent and he's playable. Next in the B tier, we have Daryl. Daryl does quite a bit of damage, especially if both shotguns deal max damage. He's good at tanking and taking out those charge bots at the end game. His role can be used to like disrupt the boss when he's shooting off his rockets, but it's not really super useful other than that. The fact that he has to get really close to brawlers really means he has lower survivability despite his high HP, and so I put him in the B tier. That being said, if he is playing with a Pam who can help keep him consistently alive for a long period of time, I would consider him A tier. Bull is kind of in the same spot with in the B tier, but with a Pam he can be A tier. He's good if you're lucky with a map that has a lot of walls that allow him to really hide behind and kind of sneak around. If he's in an open map, he's pretty awful because it's hard to kind of get close to those brawlers. Once again, B tier for Bull, A tier with Pam. Lastly, in the B tier, we have Spike. Now, Spike used to be one of those brawlers that was super great, especially when paired with Barley, because he could throw down his super and that would just slow all of those brawlers down and you could just melt through them. Now, with these Bull bots kind of charging through it, it doesn't stop them, they just go right through it. It's just not as helpful as I would like it to be, especially because he's super squishy, so that means that you really have to be careful if he gets hit by one or even two shots. On top of that, he does actually pretty decent damage against like one brawler or possibly two brawlers that are really close up to each other, but his reload speed is so slow that it makes it difficult to use him consistently, particularly once you get past that third boss and the charging bots really start to build up. Okay guys, let's go ahead and jump into the A tier brawlers for Robo Rumble. These brawlers are great for Robo Rumble. They're not as good as the excellent S tier brawlers, but they're pretty fantastic. Let's start off by talking about Jessie. Jessie's turret has absolutely insane damage per second. Now, it can take some time and practice to know exactly where to position it correctly, but if you can do that, there's actually a lot of pros that would actually consider her as an S tier brawler. The best way to position it is so that it is in a spot where it can deal damage consistently to brawlers, but not in a position where the bots are going to be able to take it out easily. If that happens, Jessie's really not that great. My suggestion is a little bit more out in the open, a little bit further back so it's dealing damage, but the enemy brawlers have to get through you, or possibly even next to a Pam's healing station, so they have to get through that first in order to get to the turret. Her shots actually deal a lot of damage if they do bounce twice and land onto 3 bots. If this is the case, she actually even does more damage than Colt and Pam, which typically are more consistently damage dealers for Robo Rumble. That being said, she does have a lower reload speed, which means that it is a little bit trickier to use her consistently. Now, when it comes to healing her turret, if you do have a max Jessie, you can try and help keep it alive, particularly if you know it will help keep it alive for a little bit longer. But if you know it's going to fall, just go ahead and let it down, because that does take one of the bounces, which decreases Jessie's damage per second, and you're better off just kind of like focusing on recharging it and landing some more shots in some of those situations. Now, her turret is absolutely amazing against the boss, but she herself is not. Make sure you go ahead and position it so that it will wreck the boss, but that the boss won't get close enough to actually take it out, because it's nearly impossible for her to recharge her super on the boss, which is just one single target. Up next, we have El Primo, who is stronger with Pam, but even with Pam, still probably just A tier. Pam helps kind of help keep him alive longer, which is one reason why she's a great option with El Primo. With one of his shots, he actually deals 2,000 damage if all of his 4 punches actually land, and the fact that he has a really high reload speed allows him to keep up that high damage. And the fact that he can actually punch through multiple bots and actually take more than one of them out allows him to do pretty insane damage, particularly in the later rounds. He can use his super to kind of reset that boss's rocket attack, or he can actually use it to like jump up onto snipers to kind of get close up on them. When you're playing with El Primo, you want to try and focus on those charging bots with those mouse bots, particularly because they have a lot of HP. They need to kind of get through them, and also they deal damage up close. And that's exactly where El Primo is as well. Okay guys, last brawler we're going to put in the A tier. I'm actually surprised about this. I was not planning on putting her here, but I am going to put Penny in the A tier. She actually does surprisingly well. I thought she was going to be F or B tier until I tried her out and realized that she actually has a lot of potential. Now her turret doesn't deal as much damage as a Jesse's turret does, but it does have more survivability because you can hide it in a place where it will attack from a long range, but is a lot trickier for bots to kind of get close to it. Since it can do splash damage, it can actually be pretty helpful in those later rounds, and near the end when those bots group up, she herself does insane amounts of damage. Particularly great against multiple sniper bots all in the same spot, because she'll hit one and those 3 coins will burst out and deal damage to the other one, and that is a total of over 4,000 damage per shot, which is insane. Now she does really struggle against those mouse bots and those bull bots and also the boss herself, but if you can time her shots just right so that max damage will happen as like a bull bot and a mouse bot kind of like reach each other and she shoots right there and hits them, so it does deal max damage, that can actually be really effective. If you're looking for a fun brawler to kind of switch things up because you've been grinding out a Robo Rumble, I actually really recommend her. She's a lot of fun to play. Okay guys, these are the S tier brawlers, the brawlers that are excellent and who I recommend playing most of the time, particularly if you are wanting to get as high a time as possible in Robo Rumble. We're going to start off with Colt as probably the brawler that you're going to want to have in your comp every single time you are playing in Robo Rumble. He has extremely high damage per second, and the fact that bots just kind of like walk in a straight line means that most of the time you can land all of your shots on him, which is really amazing. You can use his super to shred through multiple bots and quickly reload it if there are enough bots in the same spot. I think it takes 4 or 5 bots all stacked up right there for him to completely recharge his super, which makes him one of the best brawlers to use at later rounds where you do have a lot of bots that try and kind of like overwhelm you. One recommendation I have with him is to have your teammates kind of fall back in a line towards the safe so that all of the enemy bots are kind of lined up and you can just shred through all of them all at once. It's kind of tricky to do that consistently because a lot of people are trying to like go after certain brawlers or trying to avoid certain brawlers and things like that, but if you can do it just right, Colt is absolutely amazing. He really is great against all bots, which is one of the reasons why I recommend having him on your team every single time. That being said, most brawlers actually struggle against the sniper bots, so if you can use him to focus on those sniper bots, that is what I recommend doing. Next, we have Pam, the second brawler that I would recommend having in every single comp when you're playing Robo Rumble if you are trying to get as high as possible. Her regular attack actually does even more damage per second than Colt if all of her little pieces actually hit all of the bots. It's not by a small amount actually, it's actually 10% more damage per second than Colt, which is why I highly recommend her. Now she doesn't have that super that can stack over and over again and deal a ton of damage or shoot through multiple brawlers, but she does have that healing station which helps add a lot of survivability to the overall team comp as a whole, and if she has her star power, she's especially good at keeping everybody alive for a longer period of time. And this is actually why I recommend having her when you're playing with a Bull, Daryl, or El Primo, because she can help keep them alive long enough so that they can actually get close up to enemy brawlers and deal the damage that they're able to at that close distance. With Pam, you're really going to want to focus on those quick moving mouse bots and those boxing bots that kind of charge at you because she's able to deal the most damage when she's close up to them. When you're learning to play Pam in Robo Rumble, it's very important for you to remember to try and stay just close enough that those enemy bots can't take you out, but that you are landing all of your shots on them so that you're dealing insane amounts of damage. Up next in the S tier, we have Barley, who is able to shred, or even better said, melt through enemy bots, which really makes him amazing, particularly the boss. If the boss is standing on all of the 5 pools of poison that he throws down for the full duration of them, it will do over 13,000 damage to that boss, which is the highest amount of damage possible in the game. For that, you have to throw them all into one really small spot, and the boss usually has to be like throwing his rockets or be stunned or something like that to really make it effective. But that is probably the best way for you to get consistently through that third boss in Robo Rumble. Now, Barley's regular attacks actually don't do a ton of damage themselves. What really makes him strong is the fact that he can actually attack multiple bots all at the same time. So this means that you should primarily focus on trying to deal damage when bots are all in the same spot. They're kind of clumped up together. That's the best way. But if you do have to pick and choose between different bots, he's better off throwing his shots over onto these sniper bots, because most brawlers do tend to struggle against those sniper bots, and he can just hide behind walls, so it's not really that big of a deal. Lastly, in the S tier, we have Ricochet. Ricochet is definitely S tier. Now, Colt does more damage consistently, but Rico is a great third choice. Technically, Rico can actually do more damage than Colt if he's maxed and you actually bounce those shots off the walls so that they then hit the enemy bots. But in order for you to deal more damage than Colt, every single one of those shots actually has to land, which can take a lot of practice to really master. But if you do get good at that, he's absolutely an amazing brawler for Robo Rumble. If you do struggle to consistently do that, honestly, you're probably better off just shooting directly at the bots, kind of like you would with a Colt. Now, he's actually really great at stacking super similar to Colt, especially if you're able to fall back in the line and take out multiple bots all at the same time. But in order for you to do that, you do have to be kind of careful and aim those shots just right. He's honestly really great against all bots, but he does have longer range than those sniper bots, which is one reason why I recommend focusing on those sniper bites so that you can have those advantages. Okay guys, here's a nice little graphic for you so that you can save that, take a screenshot of that, and use that whenever you're playing Robo Rumble. Now, before you jump off the video, I did want to go over the best comp for Robo Rumble if you want to get as high uptime as absolute possible. First of all, you want Colt. Right? We already talked about Colt. He's insanely amazing. Second of all, you want Pam, right? Already amazing DPS, as well as increasing survivability of your team overall, which is fantastic. Now, the third spot is a little bit tricky. Naturally, you might say, hey, I'm going to go for this S tier, these other S tier brawlers, either Rico or Barley. And that is absolutely a great choice. But both of those brawlers have really low survivability and get taken out extremely quickly. The reason why they are in the S tier is because we're going to assume that this is a competitive tier list for Robo Rumble, trying to get the best time possible. And if you really want to be competitive, you've got to be good at dodging those sniper shots while you're avoiding those mousy bots, at the same time of avoiding those bull bots that are charging at you, you know, kind of like matadors. Ole! Doing all of that can be really tricky, but if you can do it, these are the best 2 brawlers to have in that third slot, but that can be tricky, like I said. If you still haven't mastered that, I recommend going for one of the A tier brawlers, including Bull and Daryl, if you're going to have that Pam in there, because she does help increase that survivability. Which A tier brawler? That's going to depend on your playstyle and who is better at which brawler with your specific team comp, but that's exactly what I would do. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I wanted to give a huge shout out to the pro players that helped with this tier list. We have Cradu, Coach Corey, Illustria, Jeff, LOL, Off the Bean, Olive Oil, Prodigy, Real Canadian, Shadow Jutsu, Super Bram, and The Secret. I wanted to give a huge thank you to them, and of course, thank you to you guys for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure you drop a comment in the section below saying which brawler is your favorite to play in Robo Rumble. For now, this is Kairos Time ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.